turned therapist. Our focus in these episodes is to humanize the athlete experience beyond the lines of their arena. In this podcast, we will explore the whole athlete, highlighting the mental, emotional, and social aspects of their journey. Today, we will be talking about life after sport from both the therapeutic lens and also for us as former athletes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, Lily, wait, tell me. Yeah, I know you were a college athlete at Georgetown. So tell me a little bit about like your journey through that experience, especially after, like when it ended for you, when sport ended for you. What did that look like?
Yeah, so I think my journey was a little different. Sport ended because of an injury, which we could have a whole nother conversation about at a different time. But so it was sort of a forced pause for me. I wasn't necessarily ready to say goodbye to being a basketball player and doing something that I had done for so long. So I ended up after my freshman year at Georgetown, I decided to stop playing basketball. So that transition was in college as well. So that was wild. So it's going from your time kind of being planned for you. You know, you have your morning lift and you have your practice block and you have classes in between and film and all of that to then switching that completely off. One, am I not seeing my teammates every day, which is completely different. I have all this free time.
Oh my gosh, the worst. Not knowing what to do with your free time.
Yeah, so that was definitely interesting and something that I had to navigate. But I've also kind of feel like I've still been navigating that now post-grad, like being completely out of college, because there's still that as being an athlete for what I think I started playing basketball when I was like 4 years old. There's still that, oh, wait, I'm feeling this need that I like need to do something, or I hadn't really done something active, or whoa, like I kind of just hung out on my couch all day today. Like, what's going on? Like, I feel like the part of me is still like missing. So I still feel that now being completely out of the college world.
Oh my God, no, I resonate with that so much. Do you ever feel like, going back to like that, especially that last part, just around like when you feel like you're like sedentary or you feel like you're not doing something, do you ever feel like though you just tend to produce or stay busy just to stay busy? Like it's not actually a form of productivity or doing something for yourself in the way in which you actually want to do it, or because it's a value add to your life or valuable to you, or it's because it's actually meaningful to you, or the exercise or the workout or whatever is something that you find legitimate joy in? Like, do you ever feel like you're just like, oh my gosh? Because I feel like there's such a hustle culture that's created when it comes to sports in general, especially within college athletics. Everything, like you said, everything's just so mapped out and planned for you. So I don't know. I can imagine, actually, I do know because I've experienced it, but I can imagine where you just have these moments where you don't know how to stay still and we just fill it with a lot of busyness.
I was just about to say that. My therapist helped me through this.
Oh, I love this.
She was like, she once told me, she was like, you create this busy work for yourself. She was like, no one else is doing this but you. Like, you are creating this for yourself. And then she'll ask me, what was the goal or what's the motive? And then that's when I'm able to step back and I'm like, oh, that's because I was an athlete my whole life. And you have that sort of like light bulb moment, which has been super helpful to be able to reflect back and be like, so what now? Like, how does this serve me? Is it serving this like part of me that I'm still trying to figure out? Or is it serving like how I'm showing up now? And sort of being able to take both of those two things and decide, one, like, do you even want to be doing that? And why are you doing it?
I love that. I feel like we do that as therapists often. It's so interesting, though, when you bring it back to yourself. It's like you're therapizing yourself as the therapist. Or you're just, but you're also humanizing yourself too, because I think that's such a universal experience for any athlete, especially collegiate athletes. That I see it with some of my former pro athletes as well, is just like, what am I doing next? And also, how do I want to fill my time? With whom and with what? And I think your values change, actually. Like, I think over time they change a lot, but you don't really know that at first until you start digging in and doing deeper work.
Yeah. I think even coming into this work, like now, new therapist,
Oh, she's an incredible therapist, everybody. Yeah. She is.
I have seen like what growing up as an athlete and how that's translated now into my work and like how I measure success and how I measure like I don't know, I'm like always growing up with coaches or family or pressures that I've placed on myself. It's like, okay, what did I do today? Like, what did I do good at? And like, how can I improve? Like, where can I grow and all of that? So now working as a therapist, when you're in a room with someone else and you're not exactly getting all of that, oh, you're doing great. Or like, you need to stay after practice and run sprints. Like, you look slow today. Like, that's not the feedback that you get when you're like working. And even like outside of therapy, I know friends and like former athletes who are in sales. They're like, wait, like I need to stay up and like get this mark because that's just how we were kind of programmed as athletes. So I think for me throughout therapy, it's been really helpful to then like take a step back and recognize like why am I the way that I am? And a lot of it has to do with how I grew up and like the sports that I played and the teams that I were a part of, but also then recognizing that that's not always a bad thing. Like you can totally turn those things into, I mean, it's how it motivates me at work now, like, and even what I'm doing. So I feel like sometimes we can talk about it in a light that's super negative, but there's also a way you can like turn it around and use it for good.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I resonate with that. I feel like I talk a lot about that with my clients is like learning how to harness that and turn it into something good that feels more in alignment with yourself versus just doing it to do it, right? And there's so much just around like I feel like producing all the time. I feel like you resonate with this as well. Like I am a total perfectionist to a T. And so I think perfectionism has also gotten in the way of me being able to, I don't know, succeed within certain avenues. Because I think when you look at it as, I don't know, that all or nothing mentality, and like you kind of go back to like, if I'm not doing the thing, then that just means I've failed. It's like, no, there's middle ground there. There's balance. There's a gray. There's a both and. Sometimes it's just about doing the thing, right? But then also finding the motivation behind the thing that's specifically for you and truly nobody else.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to turn off that
Yes.
because for so long it was like, okay, you were able to see like numbers of like, for me, it was basketball. Like, how many times was like, how long was I on the floor? How many points did I have? What were my assists? What were this? Like, did we win? Did we lose? And then there's like meetings with your coaches and all of that. Like, there was no room for the middle ground. So I feel like a huge thing with returning or like life after sport is like, one, learning and recognizing that there is a middle ground and then finding a way that works for you that feels relevant to like reach that middle ground and feel like you're also like proud of yourself in that middle ground or you're thriving in that middle ground. Like, sure, I think we should always be able to look at ourselves like, what more can we be doing? Or maybe what is there something that we shouldn't be doing less? But there's still that like recognizing that you're allowed to operate in a space that isn't like only winning.
100%. This is okay. So something that's coming up for me it's such a therapy thing. Something that's coming up for me when you say that, I often think about nervous systems and I think about feeling or actually having been dysregulated for a really long time, like nervous system dysregulation and the inability to slow down, which really I feel like it's like having so many different thoughts or having so many different ideas or being like, I need to jump into this direction or go this place and this way. And I feel like that often. And it's like sometimes you just have to it's like slowing down to go fast. So in order to like accomplish said goal, task, whatever, it's like sometimes you just need to pull yourself back, slow down for a second and be comfortable with actually like slowing down and recalibrating like your mind and your body. I feel like I struggled with that for a really, really long time, which honestly, right after sport, especially like that first year when I first started working, I mean, I was in corporate America. So that was not
Hard
anymore.
to slow down there.
Yeah, it's hard to slow down there. But I remember feeling like one, I also was missing, we could talk about this for hours, but I was also missing a purpose, which now ironically, I'm now a therapist for athletes. So I think we found it.
Yeah.
But I remember feeling that too, because I was in sales and did PR for a little bit as well. But yeah, just like feeling like I'm running around in all of these different directions, but nothing actually felt aligned. And whenever I had the opportunity to slow down, I didn't really know how to. And it just felt like I wasn't being intentional with the time that I was spending. It honestly threw me into a depression. I remember the first year out of sport, I was really depressed because it just felt like everything that I'd worked so hard for, it's almost like it's done and you're not on that stage anymore. And I think there's a lot of grief that even comes with that period of transitioning and just learning more about who you are without the sport itself, because the athlete in you will never go away. That will always, always remain.
This conversation is definitely showing that.
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, really is for both of us, for both of us. But it is so interesting too when you do slow down and you're like, okay, but is this really aligned? Like, does this feel aligned? Does this job feel aligned? Does this career feel aligned? Like, is what I'm doing, like that hustle culture, even like just going out? Oh my goodness. Like, I'm not afraid I was going out all the time. Like, and I feel like it's so normalized too within, corporate America and with sales. And like, that works for some people, great. But it definitely did not work for me because it felt like, again, I was just spinning my wheels for so long, trying to find a place in space that had more meaning and purpose, but nothing was actually aligned, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, I feel like for me, and I feel like maybe I've already said this, but from what you're saying, what comes up for me is it's not that we're trying to like, after you're done with your sport and you close that chapter, it's not like, okay, you are never an athlete ever again. Like that's there for you. And honestly, again, you should harness that because it will be able to come up later in your life and serve you very well. But it's noticing that, like taking a step back and noticing it is really honestly where like all of my transformative therapy work has probably happened. It's just being able to be like, oh, it all makes sense now. Like that's why I'm like that, or that's why I'm doing this. And then another thing I think when we were talking about slowing down, it's recognizing what slowing down is and like how it can change. And for me, like when I was an athlete, slowing down was like coming home for winter break, sitting on the couch, having my mom literally give me every single meal.
Yes.
Me not do like literally, I was like, Mom, I'm not moving. I will be here for like as many days as I have off straight. Like that was slowing down for me then. Now, slowing down for me is like, for me, like now as a therapist, when I need to slow down, it does incorporate exercise more now, but it's like a slower pace exercise. It's like, I'm going to go for a run and I'm literally not going to care how long it takes me to get to where I want to go, how many miles I'm doing. Like the numbers are out the door, or I'll go to a yoga class or something. Like it's like you can still do what like on paper an athlete would be doing, but it's just in a completely different way. So originally, I think it was like, I need to be doing sprints and I need to be like still playing pickup basketball and I need to be doing all of this. Now I still consider myself an athlete. Like now I'm training, we're both training for triathlons now.
Yes, we
And it's like, we're doing it because we want to. And like, there's the motive and there's where it's all coming back. It's full circle.
Oh my gosh, yes, because we want to, not because we have to. I feel like that everything that you're talking about just brings me to another point. I see this. So I see this as a therapist. I've seen this within myself, but I see this as a therapist with a lot of former athletes or athletes who are transitioning out into this next chapter of their lives, and specifically around body image. And again, the culture around exercise and what it actually means to you and training and all of that. Because if the focus for so long was to be better or to be the best version of yourself in your sport, right? Or, you're working with your team towards some common goal. And exercise, I mean, it's just so manualized. There's so much rigidity around that. And so when you first get out, it's like, okay, I actually remember I didn't like know how to incorporate it in a way that felt just good for me. I remember I would be fixated on like body composition for a while, and then I would get really frustrated, or I was so burnt out from doing X, Y, and Z exercise that even the thought of exercise turned into such a chore. But it wasn't until I wasn't until I started therapy that I really, I mean, and doing just like more work around like what exercise actually means for me as just a space to release, a space to even slow down, and something that is like self-motivating for me, whether that be a cycling class. Maybe I'm not lifting the way that I used to, but that's okay because I found something that worked for me, and my intention around it actually had nothing to do with body composition. It had more to do with, well, it was really for my mental health and really just a space to go to clear my mind. Because the byproduct of that at the end of the day is, of course, you're going to feel better. You're going to maybe feel stronger at whatever, but it's for you, however you want to use that.
But it makes sense that turning that switch in our brain is going to be hard, and it's often going to need a lot of people to be there for you and help you and support you during that time, because for so long, sport and exercise literally meant like so many different things than to what it means now. Like that transition is just a lot. I know I was like hyper fixated on Soul Cycle right after I
Me too.
left
Love,
sport. Yeah.
shout out to Soul Cycle, man. That was therapeutic. That is
Yeah.
therapy in itself.
Literally though, but I think I'm glad that it was Soul Cycle and not like some like lifting or something that wasn't as mental. Like, because I think it really was able to like incorporate both of the two things that I wanted to do together. So plug for Soul Cycle, I guess.
Yeah, plug for Soul Cycle. I love it. Another thing I keep thinking about in regards to life after sport and just like that massive transitional period. I'm a career changer. Lily, I'm not sure. No, you went straight from school too. Yeah. So, and I had no idea, if I'm being honest, what I really wanted to do when I was in college. I was a journalism major. I was like, that's the route, I'm doing it. But I kind of walked out of school being like, I have really no idea what it is that I want to do. And I actually see this with a lot of my athletes as well. Is like, you're so fixated or focused on the sport. Like, I mean, yes, you're a student athlete first, right? But your sport becomes your life. And so, and being an athlete and everything that comes with it becomes your life. So I felt just really lost. I feel like, and I see this with some of my former pro athletes too, is like also feeling lost and re-identifying yourself beyond just the athlete, right? Like, who are you? Like when you're not playing your sport, and like what, for me, purpose comes up a ton. Like I felt very purposeless. And I think, and that might not be for everybody, but I will say there's definitely a common theme when it comes to athletes, because when you're performing at that level, on that stage with that team, there's so much buy-in that comes with that. And it's true, you're doing something bigger than yourself. And so for me, I was like, I just feel so lost in this like world. Like, what is my purpose and how can I realign to a way that I feel like in so much more alignment with what it is I'm supposed to be doing, like in this world? Because I think we don't access that enough when you're playing college sports. You might not even be able to access that when you're, when you're playing a professional sport as well. It's not until after you're done, whether it's by choice or whether it's, due to some like career injury related, situation or stressor, but that you're like, okay, I think I need to make meaning of this. And I talk a lot about that with my clients too, is like making meaning, because it just feels more fulfilling, especially if at that time there was so much within that world that was so fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to point out, like, we're still pretty much attached to sport too,
Yes,
in the work that we're
in the work
doing.
that we're doing.
So, and I think that also just proves a point and really proves what we're trying to say. And I know so many other people, like a lot of retired athletes go into broadcasting, or they go like all the maybe negative or more negative things that we've talked about when we talk about sport are also all the things that are very like enticing and mesmerizing, and like people love it. And it, like for so many years, it provided us like joy and excitement and friendships and like all these amazing things. So I think there's also, again, like that whole all or nothing thing, like there's that middle ground again where we could still find something that, what do we value? Like, sure, I value sport, but I also am now going to take this off time that I have to figure out the other things that I value in my life that like bring meaning into my life. I feel like with the off time, instead of maybe creating that busy work, kind of create like, okay, let's kind of figure out what I care about. Like now I have this time, so I'm going to like, I sometimes hate when people do this, but like sign up for a cooking class. Like I know that's like the first thing that comes to
No,
my
I
mind,
love it.
but like something like that, or like lean into like spending more time with your siblings because you were too busy all those years traveling to XYZ tournaments. You know what I mean? So just kind of like reconnecting to things that you didn't have time for, I think is like a helpful tip when you're kind of feeling lost and trying to figure out your identity. I know I love my dad so much, but to this day, he will still introduce me as like, Lily, my 6'2" daughter, like Division 1 basketball player. Like I'm 24 and haven't played basketball in many years now. So that's how he introduces me. But I'm like, again, through therapy, I'm like, love you so much, dad. But like, you know what? That's not me anymore. That's a part of me. But like, there's other things. And like, sure. And now what I'm doing is like, what I'm doing as a therapist who like specializes working with athletes is sure, like that part of me is still there, but you're able to like redefine your values and your motivations.
I love that. 100%. That's my dad does the same.
Yeah. They're so proud of us.
And I'm 31. So we've been out of the game for a while. But yeah. And that competitive edge though, oh my gosh, I'm like thinking about it. It never goes away. I mean, gosh, I'm a pickleball queen now.
Yep.
So it's like, and it doesn't like it stays with you, but that's such a beautiful thing too. Again, we talk about like how to harness that in a way that feels just good to the individual because everybody's very different with this. And you're getting my wheels turning thinking about this even more so now. And I know, especially within the collegiate athletic world, like that's so much around identity formation. It's come so far, even talking about your mental health and just all of the variances and of who a person is beyond just the sport itself, right? Like you're an athlete, but you're also like, for example, I'm an athlete, but I'm also Sarah who loves X, Y, and Z, right? Or values X, Y, and Z. And I think for anybody that's listening, maybe at the college level or even high school level, is still get in touch with those other parts of yourself too. It might feel challenging to do. And yes, maybe you're
exhausted.
There you go. Exhausted or just so focused on the sport itself. But like, there's so many different elements and different parts to your being. And you can value more than one thing. You really can. And you are like, there's so much more to you than just being an athlete. And I think that's just really important. So go explore that. Like you said, noticing all of this as well. Like I always say, stay curious. So just be curious. Be curious about different environments. Be curious about different people. Think about, I always tell people too, like if nobody was watching, like what would you be reading or what would you be watching or what would you be doing? Like if nobody knew the inner world that you lived in, like what would you be listening to? Where would you go? Like I haven't done anything with this, but my God, I love coffee and I love coffee shops. And like that's just, for me, I find like peace and solidarity and like going to a coffee shop and whether that I'm working there or not, like even just going for walks around the city gives me inner peace and guidance. And I feel like I am so much more grounded in those spaces. And, family comes up a lot for me too, is like, wow, like the immense value I have now on my family I always had, but I think it gets a little lost in the sauce when you're playing all the time. And so yeah, like really being intentional with your time and just exploring that, like staying open and exploring the different parts of who you are to your core.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great place to end.
Okay,
great job, Sarah.
I love it. Oh my gosh, Lily's amazing. You guys, she's phenomenal. And I think that's all we got today. But yeah, feel free to contact us, reach out with any questions. We'd love any feedback as well. Have a good one.